The sun has not yet cleared the eastern ridge, and already Jerusalem is awake. A faint blue light spills over the jagged hills of Judea, catching on limestone walls that seem to glow from within. The air is cool, almost sharp, carrying the scent of dust, olive wood smoke, and something metallic, like stone warming after a long, cold night. Then, slowly, the city begins to breathe. Footsteps echo in narrow alleys. Sandals scrape against worn stone. A donkey brays somewhere beyond the walls. And from high above, the Temple Mount rises, immense, blinding, impossible to ignore. This is Jerusalem, in the year 30 AD. Not the quiet ruin of memory, not the polished image of stained glass and imagination, but a living, crowded, restless city, dense with tension, devotion, fear, and expectation. And if you stand here long enough, watching the light crawl over its walls, you begin to realize something unsettling. This city is not waiting for history to happen. It is already in the middle of it. What you're about to see is not a reconstruction of myth, but a convergence of archaeology, ancient texts, and the physical reality of a world that once stood in stone and sweat. Every wall, every street, every shadow carries weight, because somewhere within this city, at this exact moment in time, lives are about to collide with eternity. But to understand Jerusalem at its most pivotal moment, you cannot begin at the center. You must start at the edges. Because before you ever see the temple, you see the walls. They rise suddenly as you approach, massive, pale, and uneven, built from enormous blocks of limestone, some weighing more than a modern truck. These are not decorative boundaries, they are statements of power. Herod's Jerusalem is a fortified city, expanded and reinforced over decades. The outer walls stretch across the ridges, following the natural contours of the hills. Towers punctuate the skyline, defensive, watchful, imposing. From a distance, the city appears almost white under the morning sun, but up close it is textured, scarred, alive with imperfections. Dust clings to every surface, small cracks run through ancient stones, wooden beams jut out from upper rooms, laundry hangs between buildings like quiet flags of daily life. And outside these walls, life presses in, pilgrims, hundreds, then thousands. They come from every direction, Galilee, Idumea, Decapolis, even from distant lands like Egypt and Rome. Their accents are different. Their clothing varies, but they are all moving toward one place. Jerusalem is swelling because it is Passover. You hear it before you fully understand it. The layered noise of humanity converging, conversations in Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, the low murmur of prayers, the clatter of carts, the bleating of sheep being led toward sacrifice. And then the gates open. Massive wooden doors, reinforced with iron, swing inward. Roman soldiers stand nearby, watching carefully. Their armor catches the early light. Cold, efficient, foreign. As you pass through the gate, everything tightens. The roads narrow, the air thickens. The city closes around you. Jerusalem is not spacious, it is compressed, built upward as much as outward, with multi-level homes stacked along winding streets. Stone staircases climb unexpectedly. Passageways twist and turn, rarely straight. This is not a city designed for outsiders, and yet outsiders flood it. You move deeper. The lower city spreads out first, a maze of modest homes, workshops, and markets. Here, daily life unfolds with relentless momentum. A baker pulls flatbread from a clay oven, the smell rich and immediate. A woman grinds grain with rhythmic precision. Children dart between adults, barefoot, laughing, unaware of the weight of the moment they are living in. But even here, something feels different. There is anticipation in the air, because everyone knows what season this is. Passover is not just a festival, it is memory made alive, a collective recalling of deliverance, of identity, of divine intervention. And in a city under Roman occupation, that memory carries dangerous implications. You pass a group of men speaking in hushed tones. Their eyes flick toward the temple, then toward the Roman soldiers stationed at key intersections. Hope and fear live side by side here. And as you move upward through the city, that tension intensifies. The streets begin to climb. The architecture changes subtly. Homes become larger, more refined, stonework is smoother. Courtyards appear behind heavy wooden doors. This is the upper city, where wealth and influence reside. Priestly families, elite citizens, those with proximity to power. And from here, you finally see it clearly. The temple. It dominates everything, not just in size, but in presence. The platform alone is staggering. An enormous rectangular expansion built by Herod the Great, effectively reshaping the very top of the mountain. Retaining walls drop down on all sides, holding up a vast artificial plateau. And on that plateau stands the temple complex itself. White stone, gold detailing, massive colonnades. In the rising sun, it is almost too bright to look at directly. Ancient accounts say it appears like a snow-covered mountain from a distance. And standing here now, you understand why. But what they don't tell you is how loud it is, because the temple is not silent. It roars with activity. You make your way toward it, joining the flow of pilgrims ascending the southern steps. These steps are wide, uneven, intentionally so, forcing those who climb them to slow down, to approach with awareness. Each step carries you closer to the heart of the city, closer to the place where heaven and earth are believed to meet. But before you even reach the gates, you encounter something unexpected: commerce. Money changers sit behind low tables, stacks of coins glinting in the light. Foreign currency is exchanged for Tyrian shekels, the only acceptable coin for temple offerings. Nearby, animals are sold, doves in cages, lambs tethered by rope, oxen guided carefully through the crowd. The smell hits you all at once. Animals, sweat, incense, dust. This is not a quiet place of reflection. It is organized chaos, necessary chaos. Because every sacrifice must be perfect, every offering must meet strict requirements. And for pilgrims traveling long distances, buying animals here is often the only option. Still, something about it feels uneasy, because devotion and transaction are happening side by side, and not everyone is comfortable with that. You pass through the gates into the outer court, the court of the Gentiles. This is the largest open area of the temple complex, surrounded by towering colonnades. Massive columns support shaded walkways where teachers gather, debates unfold, and ideas collide. Here, the world meets Israel. Non-Jews are allowed in this space, but no further. A low stone barrier separates this court from the inner sanctuaries. Warning inscriptions are placed at intervals, written in Greek and Latin: cross this boundary, and the consequence is death. Even the Roman authorities respect this law. That is how sacred this place is considered. And as you stand here, taking it all in, you begin to feel the weight of it. Not just the architecture, not just the crowd, but the belief. Because for the people here, this is not symbolic, this is real. God dwells here, not metaphorically, not spiritually in some abstract sense, but literally. His presence is believed to rest within the innermost chamber of the temple, the Holy of Holies, and everything in this city orbits around that reality. Every prayer, every sacrifice, every law, every hope, which is why what happens here in this city, in this exact period, will change everything. But that change doesn't begin with a grand announcement. It begins quietly, in movement, in whispers, in a man walking through these very streets, unnoticed by many, but unforgettable to those who see him. And as the city fills, as Passover draws nearer, as tension builds between Rome and restless hearts, Jerusalem tightens like a drawn bow, waiting, not knowing that history is about to split in two. And somewhere within these walls, the story is already unfolding. The higher you climb, the more the city seems to narrow, not just in space, but in focus. Everything points toward the temple. Every street, every staircase, every shifting current of people seems drawn upward, as if Jerusalem itself is built to guide your eyes, your body, your thoughts to a single place. And yet, as you move with the crowd, something becomes increasingly clear. This is not just a place of worship. It is a place of control. Roman soldiers stand stationed along the edges of the temple complex, particularly near the towering Antonia fortress, an angular, imposing structure that looms over the northern corner of the Temple Mount. From its elevated position, Rome watches everything. They have to, because during Passover, Jerusalem becomes unpredictable. The population of the city can swell to several times its normal size. Pilgrims flood in, bringing not only offerings and prayers, but stories of deliverance, of liberation, of a God who once shattered empires to free his people. And Rome understands what that kind of story can do, so they watch, always watching. You can see it in the posture of the soldiers. Their hands never drift far from their weapons. Their eyes scan constantly, not just for violence, but for signs of unrest. A gathering crowd, a raised voice, a spark, because it wouldn't take much, just one moment, just one man. And as you move through the court of the Gentiles, weaving between merchants and teachers and pilgrims, you begin to notice something else. Conversations are changing. There is a name being spoken quietly, carefully, but repeatedly. Some speak it with curiosity, others with excitement, and a few with concern. Jesus of Nazareth. The name moves through the crowd like a current beneath the surface. You hear fragments. He was seen near Bethany. They say he healed a man born blind. Lazarus, 4 days dead, and he walked out. The stories vary, but the effect is the same. Attention is building, and in a city already stretched between devotion and political tension, attention is dangerous. You leave the temple courts for a moment, descending slightly into the surrounding streets. Here, the contrast becomes even sharper, because Jerusalem is not unified, it is layered. You pass a group of Pharisees, recognizable by their garments, their careful adherence to visible markers of the law. Their expressions are serious, measured. They speak in low tones, discussing interpretation, tradition, authority. Nearby, a different group, Sadducees, move with a quiet confidence. Many of them are connected to the priestly aristocracy, to the temple itself. Their concerns are not just theological, but political. Stability matters to them. Rome must be managed, not provoked. And then, almost hidden within the flow of people, there are others, zealots. You don't identify them by clothing, but by intensity, by the way they look at Roman soldiers, by the tension in their posture, by the quiet readiness for something more. Jerusalem is a city of factions, different visions of faith, different expectations of the future, different definitions of what it means for God to act. And yet they all occupy the same streets, the same narrow spaces, the same sacred center. You continue walking. The sounds shift as you move deeper into residential areas. Less shouting, more conversation. Doors open into small courtyards where families gather. Water is drawn from cisterns. Meals are prepared. This is where the city breathes in a different way, not as a destination, but as a home. You step into one of these homes. Low doorway, cool interior, thick stone walls that hold back the growing heat of the day. The room is simple, woven mats on the floor, clay lamps, storage jars lining the edges. A woman kneads dough with practiced hands. A man repairs a wooden tool in the corner. Children sit close, listening, as an older relative recounts the story of the Exodus. Their voices are soft, but steady, because this story matters, especially now, especially here. You notice something else, hospitality. Despite the crowding of the city, despite the tension, homes are opening. Extra guests are being taken in, relatives, strangers, travelers. Space is made, even when there is little to give. Because Passover is not meant to be experienced alone. It is shared, remembered together. And as evening approaches, the city begins to transform again. Light shifts, shadows stretch, the heat of the day softens into something more bearable, and Jerusalem slows. But it does not sleep. Fires are lit across rooftops and courtyards. The smell of roasting lamb fills the air, rich and unmistakable. Conversations grow deeper, more reflective. You walk back toward the Temple Mount, but this time you pause at a distance. From here you can see the full silhouette of the complex against the fading sky. And then you notice it. Movement, torches, lines of priests in white garments, moving with deliberate precision. Even at this hour, the temple is active. Offerings continue. Rituals unfold in careful sequence. Nothing here is sluchino. Everything is ordered, intentional, because this is where heaven touches earth, or at least where it is believed to. And that belief shapes everything. But not everyone experiences it the same way. For some, the temple is a place of awe. For others, it has become something else. Heavy, complicated, distant. And it is in that tension, that gap between what is believed and what is felt, that something begins to shift. Because the stories about Jesus are not just about miracles, they're about authority, about forgiveness, about access to God that does not seem to depend on this place or its systems. And that idea, it is more disruptive than any political rebellion because it challenges the center itself. You begin to sense it now, even without seeing him. The city is on edge, not with chaos, but with expectation. Something is coming. You can feel it in the way conversations pause when certain topics arise, in the way religious leaders watch more carefully, in the way Roman soldiers stand a little straighter, in the way ordinary people look toward the road leading into the city, as if waiting. And then one morning the tension breaks, not with violence, but with movement. A crowd begins to form along the eastern approach. Word spreads quickly, faster than usual, as if carried by something unseen. He's coming. You move with the current, drawn toward the source. People are gathering along the road descending from the Mount of Olives. Cloaks are thrown onto the ground. Palm branches are cut and waved. The energy is different now, not quiet, not cautious, but openly hopeful. And then you see him, not on a war horse, not surrounded by armed men, but riding on a donkey. Simple, deliberate, the kind of image that feels almost too quiet for the moment, and yet the crowd understands. They shout, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." The sound echoes off the stone walls, rising, spreading, impossible to contain. This is not just excitement, it is declaration, expectation, a recognition, whether fully understood or not, that something significant is unfolding. And as he enters the city, everything begins to shift. Because this moment, this quiet, humble entrance, carries a weight that Jerusalem is not prepared to hold. The same streets that now echo with praise will soon carry a different sound. The same crowds that gather in hope will face confusion. The same city that stands in devotion will be confronted with something it cannot easily explain. But for now, the moment lingers. The sun rises higher. The crowd presses in. And Jerusalem, ancient, sacred, restless Jerusalem, welcomes a king it does not yet understand. The sound doesn't fade. It lingers in the stone. Hosanna, Hosanna. Even after the crowd begins to disperse, even after the dust settles back onto the road, something has shifted, permanently, irreversibly. Jerusalem feels it, because this was not just another group of pilgrims entering for Passover. This was different. You can see it in the reactions. Some faces are lit with hope, eyes wide, voices still trembling with excitement. Others are tight, controlled, calculating, watching, measuring what just happened and what it might mean, because everyone understands the symbolism. A king entering the city during Passover. That combination is not neutral. You follow the movement back toward the temple. The same massive structure now feels closer, heavier, as if it too is aware of what has just taken place. And then it happens. He enters the temple courts. No hesitation, no announcement. He walks directly into the outer court, the place filled with merchants, money changers, animals, the same place you passed through before, the same place where devotion and transaction collided. But now, something is different. There is a stillness, a pause, as if the air itself is waiting, and then movement, sudden, forceful. Tables overturn, coins scatter across the stone, ringing out sharply as they hit the ground. Doves burst from their cages in a chaotic flutter of wings. Voices rise, confusion, anger, shock. This is not what it was meant to be. His voice cuts through the noise, not shouted wildly, but carrying a clarity that feels undeniable. My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. The words land hard, not just as accusation, but as exposure. Because this place, this sacred center of the world for these people, has become entangled with something else. Control, profit, power. And now, in a matter of moments, that system has been publicly challenged. You watch as people react. Some step back, uncertain, unsettled. Others lean in, drawn closer. And the religious leaders, they are already moving, already calculating, because this is no longer just a curiosity, this is a threat. Not necessarily to Rome, but to them, to their authority, to the fragile balance they maintain between devotion and survival under occupation. And in Jerusalem, balance is everything. You leave the temple courts as the commotion continues behind you. The streets outside seem unchanged at first glance. Vendors still calling out, families still moving through their routines. But beneath the surface, something is spreading. Faster now, more urgent. The name that was once spoken quietly is now everywhere. Jesus. And not just stories anymore. Actions, public, unavoidable. You pass a group gathered tightly in a shaded corner. A man speaks rapidly, recounting what he just witnessed inside the temple. His hands move as he talks, trying to capture the force of the moment. He overturned everything. Everything. Another interrupts. But who does that? Who has that authority? No one answers immediately, because that question is the question. And it doesn't go away. It follows you through the city, up the narrow streets, across the rooftops where people gather in the cooling evening air, into the homes where families sit together, breaking bread, retelling the events of the day. There is no part of Jerusalem untouched by it now. And yet, the city continues, because it must. Passover approaches, preparations intensify, lambs are selected, inspected carefully without blemish. Families organize their meals. Unleavened bread is prepared. Bitter herbs are gathered. Everything is moving toward the night of remembrance. But now, there is another layer. A question woven into every conversation. Could this be the moment? Could this be the one? The idea is dangerous, not because of what it promises, but because of what it could provoke. Rome does not tolerate rival kings, and the temple authorities do not tolerate challenges to their control, which means this tension, already stretched to its limit, is about to tighten even further. You return once more to the Temple Mount as evening deepens. The sky is darker now, scattered with early stars. Torches flicker along the colonnades, casting long, shifting shadows across the stone. The noise has softened, but it hasn't disappeared. Priests continue their duties. Guards remain at their posts, Pilgrims linger, reluctant to leave the place they have journeyed so far to reach. And somewhere within the city, decisions are being made, quietly, deliberately. Because what happened today cannot be ignored. Not by the religious leaders, not by Rome, and not by the people. You stand at the edge of the temple courts, looking out over the city. From here, Jerusalem stretches in layers, rooftops, walls, narrow streets weaving between them. Small lights flicker in homes. Voices drift upward, fragments of conversation carried on the night air. It looks peaceful, but it isn't, because beneath that calm surface, everything is shifting. And then, as if the city itself is holding its breath, the night deepens. Hours pass. And in one part of the city, behind closed doors, a small group gathers for a meal. Simple, quiet, intentional. Bread is broken, wine is shared. Words are spoken that will echo far beyond this room. Words about covenant, about sacrifice, about something new being established in the shadow of something ancient. But the city does not hear those words. Not yet. What the city will hear comes later. Much later. For now, Jerusalem rests in a fragile stillness, a pause between moments, a space between what has happened and what is about to happen. And if you stand here long enough listening closely, you begin to realize something almost unsettling. The stones themselves feel like witnesses. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have held the weight of countless prayers. They have absorbed the footsteps of generations. But what they are about to witness will be unlike anything before it. Because within these walls, over the next few days, events will unfold that will not just shape the future of this city, but redefine how humanity understands God, sacrifice, power, and redemption. And yet, standing here now, you would never fully guess it. Because Jerusalem does not look like a city on the edge of transformation, it looks like a city preparing for a festival, which is exactly why what happens next will be so shocking, so disorienting, so impossible to ignore. The streets you've walked will soon carry a different kind of procession. The voices that shouted Hosanna will not all remain the same, and the temple, the center of everything, will stand at the heart of a moment that challenges its very purpose. But for now, there is only the quiet, the flicker of torchlight, the murmur of distant voices, and the sense, deep, undeniable, that you are standing inside a story that is about to reach its breaking point. Before dawn, the city stirs again, but this time, something is different. The air feels heavier, not louder, not yet, but charged, as if something unseen has already begun to unfold while most of Jerusalem slept. You move through the streets in the dim blue light of early morning, the same narrow paths, the same stone walls, but now the rhythm has changed. There is urgency, footsteps are quicker, voices are lower. People gather in tighter groups, speaking in fragments, in questions. Did you hear? They took him. When? During the night. The words spread unevenly, like ripples in water that has just been disturbed. Arrested. The name is not always spoken out loud now, but it doesn't need to be. Everyone knows who him is. You follow the movement again, not toward the temple this time, but toward the upper areas of the city, where authority resides not just in ritual, but in decision. The house of the high priest. It stands larger than the surrounding homes, more enclosed, more guarded. Torches still burn near the entrance, their light flickering against the stone. Inside, something has already happened. Not a public event. Not something meant to be seen. A trial, but not in the way justice is meant to unfold. Witnesses called, accusations made, voices raised, and somewhere in the middle of it, silence. Because the one at the center of it all does not defend himself in the way others expect. You don't see this directly, but you feel its aftermath as the doors open, as movement spills back into the street. The decision has been made, and now it must be carried out. But there is a problem. Authority. The leaders of the temple do not have the power to execute. That power belongs to Rome, which means the story must move again, downward, toward the place where Roman authority is most visible. You follow the growing crowd as it shifts through the city, descending toward the Praetorium, the governor's residence. The architecture changes subtly again, more structured, more aligned with Roman design, less organic, more controlled. And there, surrounded by soldiers, stands the man who now holds the decision, Pontius Pilate, a governor tasked with maintaining order in a place that resists it at every level. You can see the tension in the scene before a single word is spoken. Religious leaders stand firm, insistent. The crowd grows behind them, restless. Roman soldiers remain alert, hands near weapons. And at the center, a man who, just days ago, entered the city to shouts of praise, now stands accused. The charges are different now. Not about the temple, not about teachings, but about kingship, power, threat. Because Rome does not act on religious disputes, but it responds immediately to anything that resembles rebellion. King of the Jews. The phrase hangs in the air, not as a title of honor, but as an accusation. And everything now hinges on how it is understood. You watch as the interaction unfolds. Pilate questions, listens, evaluates. He does not seem convinced, not at first, because this does not look like a rebel leader. There are no armed followers, no organized resistance, no visible threat, and yet the pressure builds. The crowd grows louder, the leaders more insistent. This is no longer just about one man. It is about control, about preventing unrest during the most volatile time of the year, and Pilate knows it. He looks out over the crowd, calculating, weighing risk. Because in Jerusalem during Passover, a single disturbance can escalate quickly, and Rome will not tolerate that. So the decision shifts, not from justice, but from strategy. A choice made not in isolation, but under pressure. The kind of decision that echoes far beyond the moment it is made. And just like that, the course is set. You feel it immediately. The atmosphere changes again, this time not with anticipation, but with finality. The crowd begins to move, faster now, more forcefully, and at the center of that movement, the man who once entered to celebration is now led through the streets in a very different procession. No palm branches, no shouted praise, only the sound of footsteps, of orders given sharply, of a crowd that no longer knows what to do with what it once hoped for. You follow at a distance, through streets that now feel tighter than before. The same walls, the same stones, but everything feels altered because context has changed. Meaning has shifted. The road leads outward now, away from the heart of the city, toward a place just beyond its walls, a place of execution, Golgotha. The name itself carries weight. The place of the skull. It is not hidden, not distant. It is visible, intentionally so, because Rome does not carry out executions in secret. It does so in public. As a warning, as a display, as a statement, you arrive as the scene begins to take shape, crosses prepared, soldiers moving with practiced efficiency, a small group of onlookers, some drawn by curiosity, others by something deeper, and there, against the stark backdrop of stone and sky, the moment that Jerusalem was not prepared for. Not truly, because everything up to this point, every expectation, every interpretation, every hope, collides here, violently, publicly, irreversibly. The sky seems wider here, the air more exposed, and as the hours pass, something begins to shift again, not just in the physical scene, but in the atmosphere itself. Darkness gathers, not the natural fading of day, but something heavier, unsettling. The kind of darkness that feels like it carries meaning, and as it deepens, the city, just beyond the walls, continues. People move, talk, prepare for Passover, because life does not stop, even now. And yet something is happening here that reaches beyond this hill, beyond this city, beyond this moment, because what unfolds on this ground will not stay here. It will move through time, through cultures, through generations, reshaping understanding, redefining belief. But standing here now, you don't see all of that. You see a man, a cross, a sky growing dark, and a city that does not yet realize what it is witnessing. And then it is finished. The words are simple, but they land with a weight that is anything but, because something has ended, and at the exact same moment, something else has begun. The ground beneath your feet feels different. The air shifts again, and far above, within the temple, the very center of everything, something happens that only a few will fully understand at first, but its meaning will echo forever. Jerusalem stands, unchanged in appearance. The walls still rise, the temple still gleams. The streets still carry the footsteps of thousands, but beneath it all, nothing is the same, because this city, this moment, has become the dividing line of history itself. And if you walk these streets now, if you trace the path from the gates, through the markets, up to the temple, and out again to the hill beyond, you are no longer just walking through a place. You are walking through the moment where heaven and earth collided, in a way no one expected, and nothing will ever look the same again.